Hi, I'm Cynthia Schiller. Please like and subscribe. So we're going to talk about watching pornography, what it does to the brain. And a lot of our narcissists seem to be either sex addicts, porn addicts, and it rewires the brain. So there's all these different studies. So it's kind of confusing, but I'll show you actual brain scans on what the brain looks like in just a few minutes. But I had come across something that says that by watching pornography, it will rewire the brain to a more juvenile state. Now, this is kind of important because our narcissist emotionally is at a juvenile state. So you add on other things that are bringing him or her into a more juvenile state, it can have devastating effects. It also changes the function of the body, the reward system. It starts to erode the prefrontal cortex of the brain. Now, this area of the brain is a critical portion that is responsible for impulse control. So our narcissists sometimes will discard things, will cheat or focus and become addicted to porn. And it's damaging the reward system where they get the dopamine effect. That's the feel good. And by evaluating this, we can see the damage that's done. So pornography has been around forever. You got all these different porn sites, and the internet has really skyrocketed. So as of 2018, there's 33.5 billion sites. Pornhub, that's the world's largest porn site that I know of. So science is only just beginning to show the neurological repercussions of a lot of porn consumption. It's readily available. And people can hide in the bathroom and watch it, but it starts to objectify people. And our narcissist already looks at us as objects instead of a true being. They've also done studies that they go to certain areas of the body instead of the whole two people. And that also shows kind of honing into objects. They don't see the person as a true person. Plus, there's a whole bunch of different varieties readily available. And the more exposure you have to different choices, the more unsettled the person's going to be with what they have. They're going to start to look for flaws. They're going to do some comparison. And by watching it in long term, it can create lower libido, which is a lower sex drive, sexual dysfunctions, erectile dysfunction, having difficulty with orgasm, even just the attention between two people in a relationship. The marital quality often goes down. The commitment will also start to become compromised, whether it's just time consumption or cheating physically. So they do see a parallel between porn consumption and substance abuse. A lot of our narcissists are either drinkers or dabble in drugs because they're always trying to fill this void that they have. They're never completely happy. When they drink, it changes their brain chemistry. And when that's going on too, the brain scans of somebody who's an alcoholic, you can see damage that's done. So there's all this damage. Our narcissist is already damaged. So we're wondering, are they going to get better? Well, are they going to work on themselves? Are they going to get healthy in all the other different ways? So the brain is wired to respond to sexual stimulation with surges of dopamine. And this neurotransmitter, most often associated with the reward anticipation, also acts to program our memories, also the information that is stored in our brain. So within this adaptation, the body requires something, whether it's food or sex. Our brain remembers this experience and wants to return to the same pleasure, but it starts to become an addiction because you want to start, it's never fully the same. You need a bigger hit to get the same response, the same comfort or craving that you have to have it fulfilled. So instead of turning to their romantic partner, a lot of porn users that habitually use porn, they just instinctively start to reach for their phones or their laptops, television, whether there's videos or paid sites, and they start to become to where they crave it, and it can consume their lives sometimes. And pornography is something that will satisfy every one of the prerequisites for neuroplastic change. So when pornographers they purposely do what they do, and they make things unreasonable sometimes. These fantasies, they don't really have a storyline. They might have some, but it's all on taking away the love. It's just the act. And by hyper stimulating through porn scenes, just like any type of addictive substance, there's going to be unnaturally high levels of dopamine, because they can also scroll through and find whatever type of fantasy they have. And they start delving into needing that dopamine hit that our brain naturally will produce in response to things. So they're going to start to look into possibly more violent acts, more sadistic, more out of the regular scheme that they would do, whether it's pain or fetishes, and it starts to consume them, and it starts to change them. Now, all of a sudden, they could be into BDSM. They could, and this is where it gets tricky, is for somebody to have like a BDSM like addiction, they're starting to change it to where it's only if it has adverse effects on their life. And that's the same with the MPD diagnosis. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, narcissists, unless it affects their life in a negative way, whether it's at a job or a relationship, because let's say they're, I don't know, if it's two people that are consenting and they're both cool with it, is it toxic, but they had a study where they had the people who are considered the bottom are more like, that's the term they used, are more the submissive type, and the top were considered more in control, and it affected different parts of their brains. And when they switched the roles, it matched up again to where it was different parts of the brain. So submissive people, it's really interesting, the different personality types of things we're comfortable with, but the people that were okay with it seem to have lower issues, but the people that were not okay with it had more stressors like anxiety or feelings of being uncomfortable. So when we're dealing with our narcissistic abuse, we're uncomfortable with it. It's not healthy. It's not okay. It is toxic. And the narcissist is just never happy with anybody. So they're always going to be destructive to people. So I want to show you the brain scan that I have. Let me share my screen with you, to where you're going to see the normal brain right here, the brain on heroin, and a brain on porn. So it affects the brain, and it can be quite devastating, quite intense. Like I said, our brain is neuroplastic to where it adapts, it conforms, it changes. Sometimes it heals, sometimes it can't. But inside the porn addiction, it can become all encompassing in their life sometimes. It's a distraction at work. They start to have anxiety. So anxiety can cause brain damage. Just that's going to cause them to lash out more. We already have an unhealthy person, and the things that they do just increase it. It exacerbates it. So, you know, exposure, how much exposure, is it okay every now and then to watch that stuff? That's up to you guys. But a lot of the narcissists that I know are into that self gratification, that, they could have sexual dysfunctions, odd types of cravings. And sometimes, depending on how narcissistic your person is, how sadistic they can get you to do things that they know that you're not really into. And just be careful with your boundaries, that you don't let somebody trap you into that. And we have to be strong within ourselves, because no means no. And it's so readily available, but it's so destructive, and whatever that time is, they're not either working, they're not focusing on the family or on you, or even just bettering themselves. Just like the Facebook addictions, we got to be careful with that we lose ourselves and it changes things about us. We, be careful not to be jealous or let down, like, I'm never going to afford that, or why did they get to have that? And it's an altered reality, just like the pornography is an altered reality. And they feel that, their needs are met, but it changes what sex is all about. It is the act, but it's also the connection. And the narcissist already doesn't have a connection, so they're training themselves to accept no real connection, to where it's just an act. And I've seen different people on their experiences. Some make it seem like it's all about them. But the narcissist, it's all about them. Others seem very attentive, but some get like an ego stroke if you have an orgasm. So is it really about you, or is it the ego stroke that they want, that they achieve that, or is it the control? It's really hard to tell what the intent is sometimes. Sometimes, where they're like, oh, it was all about me, he was so attentive. Is it really all about you? Do they get let down if you don't have an orgasm? Do they, you know, use sex as a weapon, whether to control you or to punish you? Even if they take it away, to have you do something that they want. So they take it away until you do what they ask for. So the narcissist brain is so unhealthy, and the addictive qualities of porn, it's all for that dopamine hit. And just like us going through our withdrawals, it's just like a cocaine addict, the withdrawals that we're feeling because of the CPTSD. We're rewiring our brains, and it can be painful. And that's why we sometimes want to go back, because we're trying to get back to that dopamine hit. And that's because of the intermittent reinforcement, the damage that was done to our brain. In a healthy relationship, it's a good exchange. It's not a hit and then starvation, withdrawal, trying to, it just throws the balance off. In a loving relationship, you're not in this heightened adrenaline state where you're causing damage to your brain. Your brain should only deal with the adrenaline for the fight or fight response, and to get you through something that doesn't last for years. Something that lasts for maybe a few seconds, few minutes, maybe a couple hours if it's something extreme. But it's not meant to have our brains in this high anxiety. And when we start going through anxiety, you get depression, you start losing sleep, our eating habits change, our weight could possibly fluctuate, and all the damage that is done for us trying to love somebody. If they would help us, our narcissist would help us with some consistency, it'd be okay. but we don't get consistency on the truth. We don't get consistency on our safety, whether it's emotional or physical safety. And we try to understand them, but they don't communicate with us. It's a losing battle. The new supply is going to go through the same thing. It just takes time. It sounds sad, but it takes time for the new supply's brain to get damaged. And that's when it falls apart, because the narcissist starts at devaluation, and the damage and the reacting to it causes the reactive abuse. The triggers start forming, and the narcissist doesn't like to talk through it. They don't like to compromise. They want what they want. They're controlling. So sometimes we stay, or sometimes we feel guilty for the way we reacted in the reactive abuse. And we felt a real love. So it's hard to walk away from something you love. But we have to love ourselves. We have to keep our brain healthy. Otherwise, that brain damage is going to cause so many different disruptions in our healthy relationships. And we're going to damage other people, because narcissists turn healthy people into narcissistic people, whether they're MPD or just narcissistic, because we're trying to heal and we're focusing on ourselves. And porn is all about focusing on that one person, not each other. The narcissist likes to focus on that one person, not each other. And, you know, if they get in a fight, it's like, whatever. I'll just go do what I got to do myself. And it can become, you know, destructive, just like most addictions. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.